sometimes. But thank you both for taking time out to chat all things oddity. I guess sort of like my first question is, this is Damien's sort of follow on from Caveat. Had you seen this? Had you seen Caveat before Oddity? And if so, what was your reaction? Because I remember this film getting a lot of buzz about how terrifying it was. I mean, that rabbit that's barely in the film was the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, I watched Caveat after having read the script for this for Oddity, and yeah, I kind of wanted to learn more about Damien and his work, and instantly saw his talent in that film because it's clearly made on quite a low budget, but you don't see that. It looks rich and it's really atmospheric and just so brilliantly crafted. I found it incredibly creepy and scary, and it kind of stayed with me for quite a while. So yeah, it was brilliant and great to kind of work with him on his second feature, and kind of work with a director at the beginning of, I'm sure, what is going to be a brilliant career. So yeah.
Mhm. Yourself, Carolyn?
Oh, me. My apologies. Yeah. I have to confess, I made a choice not to watch Caveat before shooting with Damien. And it was some prep choice that I made at the time. And I can't remember why I made it. And I said that I would watch it after, and I haven't watched it yet. I'm the worst. So that's my confession. I still need to watch it. I went looking for it after this came up in another interview. I'm like, God, I really need to watch it. And I couldn't get it. So I need to get on to Damien and see if he'll send me a link. But yeah, whether it was the right or wrong decision or not, I've no idea. But yeah, have not seen Caveat yet, which is terrible.
It's very interesting that you both had sort of different ways of looking at it. One of you was like, I want to see I want to see what I'm getting into, and then you were just like, you know what, I like this script, I like these characters, let's go for it. I mean, what was it about these characters for both of you that sort of stood out and made it an exciting project? Because I mean, neither one of you had actually seen Caveat before reading the script. So what was it about these characters and this story that compelled you to be involved?
Africa.
I think initially, well, when you read a script and you enjoy it, um, you're kind of hitting the ground running. And maybe initially for me, just the initial challenge of being able to play two characters in the one movie, I think on a very surface level, that really appealed to me. But you know, after getting the role and in the prep and talking with Damien and throughout that process, I really learned to appreciate it a lot more. So it grew. It most certainly grew on me. It might have been a little bit surface of going, God, this is a great challenge as a performer. But then once the entire story fleshed out and got to know it a bit more, I just really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading the script first time around and finding it just quite creepy and eerie, just sitting reading it on the page. I remember being scared in my own house reading a script. So I was like, well, that's a good sign that it's already scary at this stage. But also beyond that, it's kind of very character driven. I like that there are these big long scenes with like long sequences of dialogue that you really get your teeth stuck into as an actor, and it was well written dialogue as well. And from my point of view, personally, I'd never. My character doesn't turn out to be the nicest character, and I don't often get a chance to play those darker characters. So I quite like the opportunity to be able to do that as well. And just his psychology and his mindset was quite an interesting psychology, and it was I like the prospect of being able to fill out that psychology, trying to work out why someone would have a kind of attitude like that. It felt like a good acting challenge, as well as being a horror film, which is something I'd never done before. So yeah.
Mm. And Carolyn, you play two characters, and one of them, Darcy, is visually impaired. I know that you have a background in social care, and that you did actually, work with people that had vision problems. Did
Hmm.
you sort of, how did you kind of use that experience of working with these people to sort of inform your performance? What was it? How was it important? Oh, sorry, blah, blah, blah. Were there any things that you thought was important to get across about these people? Because I think there is a very stereotypical blind character in films, and this Darcy is very
Mm.
much not that sort of person.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, to be honest, in terms of the source material for people who are visually impaired, it didn't come from the movies. It definitely came from people in my life and who I've met throughout my life who have, on various levels on the spectrum, have existed with their visual impairments from mild to severe. And the common denominator for me was that it was subtle. It was subtle. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was not making it the big thing, being respectful and sensitive to it, um, but that that understated and grounded in a bit of realism was the way to go. Because there is so much about Darcy that's quite unusual. There's so much, like her being a medium, being grieving her sister, the relationship that she has with the wooden man. I thought it was just more respectful to ground her in a bit of reality when it came to her visual impairment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It took me a few scenes to even realize that she did have an impairment. If it was, the way that she obviously in her own environment where we first meet her in like a curiosity shop, she obviously knows that very well. So like in those scenes,
Exactly.
it didn't even occur to me that there was anything. And that's obviously, this is how people live with these conditions perfectly normally. So I think it's quite nice that that's represented here.
Yeah, exactly. And it changed ever so slightly when out in the house, in her own environment in her shop, she knows the map of it. Perhaps a little less so out in the house. And yeah, just wanted to create subtle little differences there, but just on the whole to keep it grounded in a bit of subtlety and realism. Yeah.
And Gwilym, acting against somebody who is acting with a visual impairment, does that change anything about your own performance? Because I guess, a lot of acting is, connecting through the eyes. And if, she's a character that isn't supposed to necessarily be able to see, does that change how you performed?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the major way I can think that it changed the way of performance is that you know he can kind of show certain reactions knowing that she's not going to see it, so that like I can move around the space knowing she's not going to see me, or kind of like try and look for something in her expression that she knows that and I don't have to conceal that I'm looking for it, if that makes sense. So that I think it was more that than not being able to make eye contact, although there is an element of that. But yeah, it's it was an incredibly, like, it was a brilliant performance because you stand opposite Carolyn and you would be convinced that this character couldn't see, but there weren't any kind of like, there's no kind of tropes, or there wasn't any indicators. It was just it felt very lived, a very lived kind of condition, I suppose. Yeah.
I did just get a flashback though to one of our scenes together, Gwilym. I think it was in the shop, and
Hmm.
we were in the middle of the take, and I realized I was staring directly at you.
I do
We
remember.
both figured it out within the performance, and we were like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!"
I was
So
like, yeah, look the other way. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So there was yeah, yeah, I just got that flashback there. That was funny.
Yeah, it's quite. I kind of I like the idea of Ted like really objectifying everybody and really trying to, like, he looks at them all as if they're his subjects that he's just trying to kind of analyze and break down, and for him to be able to do that to someone that's blind really allows him to kind of look at them, watch them, observe them in a way that you couldn't with someone that kind of sighted, I suppose.
Hmm. One of Damian's trademarks, I mean, it's his second film, but it already feels like a trademark, is his finding of locations and the places that he chooses to shoot in are so interesting. How did, working in, in that house, in the asylum building, how did that sort of help you guys as actors? Because I mean, this is obviously a modest budgeted film, but instantly just through those locations, it looks like 10 times more expensive than it probably was.
Yeah, finding the real location is a gift because it becomes a character in the film almost. The most talented set painter or whatever in the world couldn't have created that kind of space. Like, I mean, and our set designer Lauren did a beautiful job in kind of elaborating it and kind of making it what it was. But ultimately, there's this beautiful, probably 400-year-old stone walled, thick stone walled building in the middle of West Cork that kind of speaks for itself really, and has these beautifully textured stone walls and really deep kind of spaces and shadows and huge big doorways that just make it instantly atmospheric and evocative really. So it's a gift, it really is, because it just makes your job so much easier being in that space as well to kind of play the story.
Mm. Yeah, it was wonderful. You could really get into it because, on a lot of other projects, you might have, your base is in one location and then you have to go to a various number of locations throughout the shoot. And I know, Gwilym, you had scenes at the hospital, but the majority of it was within those grounds, and all the departments were majoritively in those grounds as well. So it was lovely. You kind of got to live in it.
Mm.
Instead of kind of going back and forth all the time. So it was a great way of just being able to remain in the world for the 5 weeks, 6 weeks that we were shooting. It was lovely. Yeah. And Damian, I love it when he talks about the location because, it's in his hometown. He's got a lot of, he talks about it with such warmth and heart and knows the people who own the building itself. And, he's, there's been a lot of creative fruits from that location for him in both of his movies. So yeah, it was great. It was, as Gwilym said, a gift.
And I think Damien is definitely sort of at the forefront of this new wave of Irish filmmakers. Obviously, there's also got Lee Cronin with Evil Dead Rise. Or you're with the film Carolyn. You are not my mother. What do you think it is about the Irish that makes them so good at telling horror stories?
I think maybe I'm just biased, but I think Irish are very good storytellers, and I think we have a healthy fear of the folklore of our country. Do you know what I mean? It's steeped in mythology. It's steeped in um, a lot of mythology that sits on fear, you know, and maybe it's a way of us processing that. But I think that in terms of what's been made recently, um, I think we're able to communicate it very well. Just that, I don't know. I think our history comes out in our storytelling a lot of the time, and it's lovely that it's coming out through horror because the sky's the limit, then, isn't it?
And I guess my last question to you both is, Oddity, it's had a great festival run. There's been a lot of buzz, but why do you hope that people go to the cinema and take a chance on this film?
It's it's creepy and it's scary. And I remember watching it for the first time, and we'd been in it and we knew the script, we knew the story, and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, it still kind of shocks and surprises for us. So as a first time audience, I've no doubt that it will do the same. And we took great pleasure in watching it at South by Southwest in cinemas, the jam-packed cinemas with a big crowd and great atmosphere. And there is like real tension in the crowd because Damien's a real craftsman and a real master at the horror genre, and he knows how to construct the jump scares and everything else. And he kind of plays around with you, like as an audience member. You kind of that something might be coming, but he'll draw it out for a few beats longer than you expect, or he'll kind of like subvert it and something else will happen instead. And I think that's something that is far better enjoyed in a communal setting in a cinema. And there's also elements of humor that when we watched in the cinema with a crowd for the first time, we just didn't know they were going to get those responses, but there were laughs when we didn't expect it. And it's great. It's lovely as an actor that you're not in control of it anymore. Maybe we never were, but like it's the audiences now, and they take it however they want to. So hearing those surprise reactions was thrilling, and yeah, there were lots of people in the audience that were kind of knowing a shock was coming and having to go, oh, la, 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 kind of doing all those things to distract themselves from the tension at the moment. So, yeah, definitely one to be enjoyed communally, I would say.